Welcome to Last Dawn Stories channel. The end of the world has come, and a mysterious person has predicted online, there will be a heavy rain in 3 days. Those who get caught in the rain have a 90% chance of turning into zombies and a 10% chance of obtaining superpowers. My sister thought the risk of getting caught in the rain was too high and firmly refused to let me get wet. Our survival was difficult, after she learned that the man next door had superpowers. She insisted on living with him despite my dissuading. The man treated my sister like a slave, and she kept complaining to me about it. I advised her to leave the man and promised to take care of her food and drinks, but she turned around and told the man, "My sister advised me to leave you. I even gave you all the food. You have to treat me well." The man was furious. He rushed into my house, strangled me to death, dismembered my body, and gave it to the dogs. I was reborn and went back to the day of the doomsday rain. It was the day after I died. The man who strangled me was lewdly doing something disgusting to my body. The narrow room was filled with a foul smell. My own sister, Jane, was sitting on the sofa leisurely. She witnessed this filthy scene while munching on the bread and milk taken from my refrigerator. "Bob, our food is almost gone. I saw in the community group yesterday that someone wants to exchange food for dog food. How about we dismember the body and cut it into pieces to exchange for some food?" After the man finished, he stood up with a sneer. He thought my leg was in the way and kicked me. In response to my sister's proposal, he nodded casually. Then he took a kitchen knife from the kitchen, dragged my body into the bathroom, and chopped it up mercilessly. In less than 10 minutes, the body was processed into pieces the size of spare ribs. Before the man could say anything, my sister ran over eagerly, carrying an open green sack in her hand. The next day, Bob carried the body pieces weighing dozens of pounds and went to the trading place with the buyer. The buyer stared at the fingernails in the body pieces and immediately recognized that this was not ordinary livestock meat. He looked at Bob suspiciously and said worriedly, "Is the source of this meat legitimate? It can't be zombie meat, right?" Seeing that the other party didn't reject human flesh but was asking about contamination, my sister immediately put on a pitiful look and explained while crying, "Don't worry, I can guarantee that it hasn't been bitten by zombies. To be honest, this is my sister. We didn't have enough food, and she went crazy from hunger. She tried to assassinate my husband in the middle of the night. My husband stopped her, but she lost her balance and hit her head on the corner of the table and died." My sister acted so sincerely, the buyer felt sorry for her. On top of the originally agreed upon 10 packs of instant noodles and a bag of rice, he gave her 3 extra loaves of bread. My spirit was floating around them, blending into the high temperature of April and May, but I felt the surrounding coldness. That day, my sister ran into my house crying and complaining that Bob had beaten her. Bob chased her all the way into my house. I picked up a fruit knife and stood between them, trying to stop him from hitting my sister. As a result, Bob kicked the fruit knife away and then grabbed my neck tightly with both hands. Bob's superpower was immense strength, and I couldn't resist him at all. I was strangled to death by him. I was only 20 years old when I died. However, my own sister not only watched Bob's murderous act coldly, the first thing she did after I died was to ransack all the remaining food in my house. She tried to placate Bob by giving away what wasn't hers. The second thing she did was to suggest that Bob dismember my body and give it to others to feed the dogs in exchange for food. Even the buyer couldn't stand it and asked my sister, "After all, the deceased is your sister. Even if she made a big mistake during her lifetime, she should be properly buried after her death. Why did you go this far?" My sister wiped her tears and said, "Luna is gone. This is the end of the world. We should make use of the remaining value for the living." I brought her up with great difficulty. If she were grateful, she would definitely want to do something for me. I listened silently to her high-sounding excuses and felt like a joke. According to reason, I had already repaid the meager kindness of her raising me. Our parents died in a car accident when I was in college. My sister dropped out of school and worked in a factory at that time. I wasn't at home when the wrecker came to compensate. She embezzled all the compensation money. She refused to give me tuition and living expenses, so I went to all my relatives and borrowed money while crying. She couldn't bear the public pressure and had to give me the tuition, but she always brought up the fact that my going to college cost a lot of money and threatened that I had almost spent all the compensation money from our parents. She kept complaining to me every day, saying that it was too hard for her to make money and that I had to earn a lot of money to support her when I graduated. The general environment was really bad at that time. She kept complaining day after all, and I was overwhelmed with guilt. So later, even if she made selfish demands, I tried my best to satisfy her. In the end, I ended up with a tragic death. In great anger and unwillingness, My soul gradually floated up and then disappeared. I thought my life would end so briefly and sloppily. Unexpectedly, when I opened my eyes again, I saw the familiar and warm room layout. My sister was looking at me with tears in her eyes and tightening the rope that bound me. She sighed and earnestly advised me, "Luna, our parents are gone, you're my only relative, don't be silly and run out to get caught in the rain. If you turn into a zombie, how can I live alone?" I got up from the bed and looked out the window. The big raindrops fell into the tray of the flower pot that was already full of water, causing small ripples. The familiar scene around me reminded me that today was the day of the doomsday rain predicted by the mysterious person. I stared out the window for a long time and finally realized that I had been reborn. Heaven has mercy and gave me a chance to start over. I made up my mind to seize this opportunity well. This time, I not only want to survive but also live until the end and live the best life. My sister frowned when she saw that I was indifferent to her advice. "Luna, did you hear me? In my previous life, when my sister stopped me from getting caught in the rain, I resisted fiercely. At that time, zombies were already causing trouble outside. I knew that without superpowers, it would be very difficult for my sister and me, two girls, to survive in the apocalypse, so I was willing to take the risk with my life. But my sister was timid by nature. She naively thought that as long as we stayed at home and didn't go out, we could barely survive in the end of the world. She didn't dare to go out and get caught in the rain, and she tried every means to stop me. The night before the doomsday rain, she secretly put sleeping pills in my water cup. Then, while I was asleep, she tied me up with ropes. The rain only lasted for half an hour, and there wasn't much rain. The temperature rose to nearly 40 degrees that afternoon. She kept watching me in my room. She didn't untie me until the high temperature evaporated the rainwater. In this way, I completely missed the opportunity to obtain superpowers. My sister's voice was still nagging in my ear. "I told you, Luna, I provide for your food and clothing. I'm like your parents, you have to listen to me about this today. I'm doing this for your own good. Don't refuse a toast and be forced to drink a." The more she talked, the angrier she became. The veins on her face bulged with anger as she spoke. She reached for the water cup by my bedside. There was the water with sleeping pills that I had left over from last night. I suddenly turned my head and looked at her with a smile. "Sister, I don't want to get caught in the rain. People who get caught in the rain will turn into zombies. I'm not stupid, so I won't take that risk." I was so determined that my attitude had a 180-degree turn. My sister couldn't believe her ears. "It's all my fault, you've gone to so much trouble to think of me." I continued, "Don't worry, I'll stay in the room honestly and promise not to go out and get caught in the rain." Seeing my good attitude, my sister was a bit at a loss. "Didn't you say that you would go out and get caught in the rain no matter what?" I shook my head. I was just impulsive and stubborn because I read those popular posts online. I woke up after sleeping and came to my senses. My sister wanted to say something. I leaned against her shoulder and said coquettishly, "Sister, I promise I won't try to escape. Please don't make me drink that water. I've slept for more than 10 hours, and my head hurts like hell. If I sleep again, I might not wake up. Sister, if I die, who will protect you in the end of the world?" Hearing this, she let down her guard and put the water cup back in place, but she still didn't untie me. She locked me alone in the room and even added a lock from the outside. I rolled off the bed and laboriously bit the scissors in the drawer with my mouth and threw them onto the floor behind me. This time, I must get caught in the rain no matter what. However, by the time I untied myself, the rain had stopped. The door couldn't be opened. I looked at the more than a dozen flower pots on the balcony outside the window. In the tray at the bottom of the flower pots, the sunlight reflected in the rainwater, shining brightly. I moved again. This time, I did the opposite and deliberately moved downstairs from my sister. I even informed her via WeChat. My sister didn't care about the news of my move. Instead, she changed the subject and complained to me. "Your brother-in-law said I'm a burden to him again. He also said I'm a useless person and don't even have auxiliary superpowers. It would be better to raise a dog than me." I heard that someone in the big community group is selling rainwater, and it's refined rainwater. There's a 90% chance of obtaining superpowers by drinking it, but it requires a lot of supplies in exchange. "Luna, do you still have any food?" "Don't worry, I won't let you give it for nothing. When I get the rainwater, I'll give you half of it. In this way, we'll both have superpowers. What do you think?" She went around in circles, and her ultimate goal was to deceive me out of my food. In my previous life, I was worried that she would be deceived. So I warned her that people's hearts were complicated in the apocalypse and that she shouldn't believe in such unfounded things. If she needed food, I could give it to her, but it could only be used for her own consumption and not given away. But not only did she not listen to my advice, she also used the fact that I didn't have superpowers to suppress me. This insider information was told to me by your brother-in-law. Your brother-in-law is not like you. He's an ordinary person without superpowers. He's in people with special powers, well-informed, and has a lot of connections. You should believe what he says, right? Yes, I'm just an ordinary person without superpowers, but who is responsible for all this? In the end, I couldn't argue with her, so I gave her the 3 bags of bread that I had been reluctant to eat. After she received the food, she not only didn't say, "Thank you," but also complained that I gave too little. Later, she only exchanged the 3 bags of bread for 10 milliliters of rainwater. She drank it all by herself. The effect was barely there, and she didn't mention sharing the rainwater with me at all. She also blamed me. When Bob called her useless again, she had an excuse. "It's all my good-for-nothing sister's fault. She was so stingy. The rainwater exchanged with 3 pieces of bread was too little. It wasn't enough at all. If she had given more, I would have become an people with special powers long ago." This time, my sister came to me with the same excuse. I readily agreed and gave her a large bag of food. The condition was that she couldn't tell Bob or anyone else about it. I specifically told her that once Bob asked her why she went out, she should use searching for supplies as an excuse, and she had to emphasize that she would be out for a long time and wouldn't be home until dark. My request wasn't too much. My sister was so focused on obtaining superpowers that she did as I said without thinking too much. She could reach my house just by going downstairs, so it only took her less than 5 minutes to get the food. My sister happily accepted the food and even said, "Thank you," to me, which was a rare occurrence. On the surface, I was flattered, but in my heart, I sneered. "You're welcome. Consider it the reward for the good show you're about to watch. Oh, by the way, I mixed some zombie blood into that bottle of wine. You don't mind, do you?" I escorted my sister home all the way. It wasn't out of kindness, but I couldn't wait to watch the good show that was about to begin. When we reached upstairs, just as my sister was about to knock on the door, I reached out to stop her. "Sister, why are you knocking? You brought so much food back. Don't you want to give your husband a surprise?" She took my advice and instead took out the key from her pocket to open the door. As soon as the door opened, a terrible smell hit our noses. My sister and Bob did that kind of thing when they were idle at night, and she knew exactly what that smell meant. Her face immediately changed, and her sharp eyes swept over a pair of women's high heels at the door. There were the sounds of a man and a woman laughing in the bedroom. My sister was furious and went to open the door, only to find that it was locked from the inside, just as she was about to kick the door in anger. Bob suddenly opened the door and slapped her hard. "What the hell are you making so much noise for? Are you blind? Can't you see I'm taking a nap?" His excuse was really lame. It was more like he was angry and trying to cover up the scandal that was about to be exposed. My sister covered her right face, which had swollen up like a steamed bun. The imposing manner with which she had come to question Bob instantly wilted. Thanks to my kindness, I pointed to the corner of a white dress exposed outside the cabinet. My sister quickly slipped under Bob's arm and dragged the woman out of the cabinet, with the evidence right in front of them. Bob had nothing to say. Before long, the 2 women started pulling each other's hair. At the same time, they were cursing each other's ancestors. The woman's name was Linda, and like Bob, she was in people with special powers. Her superpower was the ability to see from afar. As long as she had a photo, she could accurately find the person or thing in the photo. In my previous life, when I was searching for food outside the community, I witnessed Linda and Bob appearing together. The 2 of them were walking side by side, and their behavior was very intimate. I told my sister about it, but she claimed that she knew Linda, because this person was Bob's friend and also in people with special powers. She had given them a lot of help usually. The main reason she didn't believe that Bob was having an affair with Linda was that Linda had a husband, and Linda's husband was an important person in the community. He had more than a dozen subordinates, all of whom were people with special powers. She firmly believed that although Bob had the desire, he didn't have the courage. Following this clue, I found Linda in the community owners group. She was posting announcements in the group every day, and the content was about helping her husband sell the doomsday rainwater. Not only that, but I learned from another community owner that Linda was also taking on some extra business. This included using her ability to see from afar to help others find supplies or people. I think Linda must have helped a lot for my sister to be able to find me accurately every time. She deliberately exaggerated the amount of supplies in my house to lure my sister in. In fact, She wanted to send my sister away to create an opportunity for her to have an affair with Bob. If this two birds with one stone strategy hadn't been used against me, she wouldn't have ended up like this. The two women were fighting, and my sister had the upper hand for a while. She was on top of the woman, grabbed her hair, and opened her mouth to shout, "You damn bitch, what kind of spell did you put on my husband, tell me?" When Linda saw that the matter had been exposed, she stopped pretending. Suddenly, she counterattacked and pinned my sister down, triumphantly saying, "Bob told me that he's been wanting to break up with you, you useless person without superpowers. You're the mistress. No, you're more like a sycophant, you dead sycophant. Stay away from my boyfriend." Her words deeply hurt my sister's nerves and self-esteem. My sister roared and turned over. She then grabbed the wine bottle that had rolled to the ground and ferociously smashed it at the woman's face. The bottom of the wine bottle hit the floor and burst open. The whole bottle of wine poured out, like a red waterfall, into Linda's mouth, on her face, and down her neck, staining a large part of her collar red. Bob had been watching with great interest. He really enjoyed the scene of the two women fighting over him, until the woman on the ground suddenly started twitching all over, foaming at the mouth, with blue veins bulging on her neck and her teeth chattering, and blood gushing out of her nose. I already said that I mixed zombie blood into the wine, and it wasn't a lot, just half a bottle. I originally prepared it for Bob and Jane to drink. Why was she so impolite and drank the wine without permission? It can't be my fault, right? Next, it's my turn to reap the benefits. Oh, I almost forgot that I have superpowers. She tricked me so many times before, making me go hungry and getting me scolded by Bob. It's not too much for me to take her superpowers, is it? While she was turning into a zombie, I pushed away Jane, who was still in a daze, and took out the dagger I carried with me. With a single stroke of the knife, I accurately stabbed the blade into Linda's right eye. The tip of the knife went deep into the back of her head, killing her with one blow. 3 seconds later, I felt a warm sensation in my eyes, as if I was wearing a hot compress eye mask, and I felt extremely comfortable and relaxed. When I opened my eyes, I felt refreshed, and my mind became much clearer. With a thought, I activated the ability to see from afar that I had just obtained. My vision suddenly expanded several times. Although I was indoors, I could see the scenery within a few hundred miles. That's right, my superpower is that as long as I kill people with special powers, I can obtain their superpowers. However, I can't let Bob and Jane know that I have superpowers for now. The ability to see from afar is just an auxiliary superpower and can't cause any real harm. Once they know that I have superpowers, I'll just replace Linda and be forced to become Bob's tool. In other words, I need more powerful superpowers until I have the strength to fight against Bob. For this reason, I started searching for people with special powers without getting tired, using various means. In addition to using the ability to see from afar, I also infiltrated the community owners group. Someone new was posting announcements in the group, and the content was a missing person notice. The person being searched for was Linda. It had been 2 days since Linda's death. Bob and Jane were guilty, so they wrapped the body tightly in a large sack. They didn't dare to throw it downstairs directly, so they buried it under the cherry blossom tree in the community flower bed in the dead of night. As for the fact that Linda suddenly turned into a zombie, after I stabbed Linda to death, I also showed them the black scratch on the back of her neck. This was enough to prove that she had been scratched by a zombie before coming to Bob's house, and she just turned into a zombie a while later. In short, I used some small tricks and successfully distanced myself from this matter. I thought that Linda's death wouldn't have anything to do with me, but I underestimated how shameless Bob and Jane are. The people under David quickly followed the clues and found Linda's body in the community flower bed. Then they logged into her computer and found the chat records between her and Bob. Bob and Jane were interrogated in front of David. When someone pointed out that Bob had a close relationship with Linda, in order to excuse himself, Bob didn't hesitate to shift the blame to Jane. "I only had business dealings with sister-in-law. Our relationship is absolutely innocent. It was this jealous woman. After she misunderstood our relationship, she smashed Linda to death with a wine bottle out of anger. There's still wine stains on the body's clothes as evidence." Just as Jane tried to explain, Bob pulled her back with one hand and slapped her hard. His vicious eyes were like a viper, as if he was saying, "If you dare to make up stories about me in front of David, I promise to kill you." Jane was once again intimidated by Bob's force. She could only hold back the truth. Instead, she covered her red face and pretended to wipe her tears, saying timidly, "I really misunderstood sister-in-law and had a fight with her, but I didn't kill her. Sister-in-law was infected with the zombie virus, and it suddenly flared up during the fight. I was so scared. It was my sister. My sister took out a dagger and stabbed sister-in-law to death. David, my sister is young and ignorant. She did it because she was afraid of the zombies. We didn't dare to say anything to protect her. So we buried sister-in-law under the most beautiful cherry blossom tree in the community. Please, for the sake of her youth, spare her. In order to play the role of a sister who protected her sister, Jane even pleaded with David on my behalf. She even hugged his calves. On the surface, she was speaking for me, but in fact, she portrayed herself as a helpless parent with a troublesome child. In this way, she could stay out of it and also arouse David's rebellious mentality. After all, no one likes a troublesome child. Bob also added fuel to the fire. Yes, she's only 20 years old. She's been spoiled at home and doesn't understand these things. I tried to stop her and told her that even if sister-in-law turned into a zombie, she should be sent back for you to deal with. But she was as stubborn as a mule. She took action when we weren't paying attention. So, with the two of them adding fuel to the fire, David's anger towards me grew stronger and stronger. When 3 people with special powers pried open my door, I was taking a nap in the bedroom. The leader, a man with a green dragon tattoo on his arm, rushed into my house with a fierce expression. As soon as he entered, he shouted for me to come out. He also opened the refrigerator rudely and greedily swept all the food into his backpack. Then, as if to intimidate me, he started smashing things, my beloved vase, the delicate porcelain I had collected, and the pots and pans in the kitchen were all smashed to pieces by him, until he grabbed the doorknob of the bedroom. He didn't forget to threaten me. Sister, come out and play with your brother. As long as you're obedient, I promise to put in a good word for you in front of the boss and try to spare your life. The next moment, the bedroom door was opened. The man with the tattoo on his arm showed a perverted and triumphant smile. In the bedroom, several tall and ferocious zombies slowly turned around and stared at the guy with the yellow hair with their strange and empty eyes. They had been hungry for several days. After seeing the guy with the yellow hair, saliva kept secreting from their bloody mouths and dripping down. The zombie leaders let out roars in unison and then charged towards their prey with a roar. The guy with the yellow hair was greatly startled by the suddenly appearing zombies. He immediately raised his palm and activated his fire-spitting ability. A ball of flames gushed out from his palm, and the zombie leader that was hit immediately caught fire. Its hair and clothes were burned black, and a strange smell of roasted meat filled the air. However, it not only didn't die but also turned into a moving fireball and pounced on the guy with the yellow hair again. The guy with the yellow hair ran around the room, chased by the burning zombie. The zombie chased closely behind him, and sparks flew all over its body. Soon, the whole house was set on fire. The ability user who had been at the back looked at the farce unfolding in front of him, with anger surging in his eyes. The other zombies rushed towards him, baring their teeth and claws, but he showed no fear on his face. Suddenly, he turned into countless sharp glass shards and brutally pierced through the bodies of the zombies. This ability user was quite powerful. In just a few seconds, he cut several zombies into pieces. Smoke seeped into the bedroom in the attic through the crack of the door. I covered my mouth and nose with a wet towel, but still, the smoke made me shed several tears. Just as the raging fire was about to climb up the stairs along the curtain, several jets of water gushed out, and the fire was extinguished soon. Then, the sound of an argument came from downstairs. "You stupid asshole, was it necessary to set the zombies on fire? If the person is burned to death by you, how can we report back?" The petite girl who looked like a loli downstairs stood with her hands on her hips and loudly scolded the guy with the yellow hair. Before the guy with the yellow hair could retort, a ceramic flower pot fell from the sky and accurately hit his head. Blood gushed out of the guy with the yellow hair's head, and he fell to the ground and died on the spot, taking advantage of the victory. I was about to raise the flower pot to attack the little girl. However, the glass man sensed it and conjured up a whole piece of glass to block the flying flower pot. The flower pot fell to the ground and shattered, and the black soil splashed all over the place. I knew I wasn't a match for them, so I turned around, ran back to the room, locked the door, and planned to escape through the window using the rope I had prepared in advance. However, they moved much faster than I expected. Just as I climbed out of the window, the bedroom door was broken open. Before my feet could step on the outer wall, I was dragged back by the glass man. His arm turned into a sharp glass knife and rested under my neck. The little loli glared at me furiously. "Second in command, this dead girl is very cunning, let me teach her a lesson." After saying that, she spat out a small water ball, which floated in front of my eyes, with more water flowing into it. The water ball grew bigger and even exceeded her height in diameter. Then, the water ball slowly moved towards me. At the same time, the glass man behind me didn't want to be affected, so he walked behind the little lowly. If it got any closer, I would be surrounded by the water ball, and the consequence would be imaginable. I didn't want to be drowned by someone else's saliva, although I had obtained a new ability. Fire couldn't put out the water, even if I tried to escape now. I would soon be caught by the glass man and tortured again. Countless thoughts flashed through my mind. I looked at the little lowly and the glass man through the water ball. Suddenly, I had an idea and quickly summoned flames in my body. I spat out flames from my mouth and both palms, and each formed a fireball about the same size as the water ball. In their surprised eyes, I combined the 3 fireballs into one, forming a fireball 3 times the size. Then, with a fierce blow, I threw the fireball at the water ball. The moment the flames touched the water ball absorbed the heat rapidly and evaporated, producing water vapor that was hotter than boiling water. I had no intention of admiring their painful and shocked expressions. Instead, I took advantage of the chaos, climbed up the rope, and quickly slid downstairs. The shrill scream of the little lowly and the impotent roar of the glass man echoed above my head. I was quite satisfied with my masterpiece. After landing, I couldn't help but laugh heartily. My complacency made me forget all the potential dangers in the apocalypse. Several nearby zombies quickly approached me after hearing the noise. One of the female zombies, although she only had the upper half of her body left, had amazing arm strength. She crawled towards me as fast as if she was rowing with her hands. Strangely, just as I was preparing to fight, it suddenly changed direction and started chasing the air. At the same time, because of the noise it made while crawling, the other zombies were quickly led astray by her and followed her to chase the air. This scene was incredible, but I didn't want to delve into it. I just wanted to leave as soon as possible before the glass man caught up. But just a few steps away, a border collie suddenly rushed out from nowhere and bit my pant leg, dragging me towards the zombies. I looked at the group of zombies. Only then did I notice that there was a person who hadn't been there before on the grass. Obviously, this person was an ability user, and her ability was invisibility, and this border collie was likely her pet. At the moment, it was asking me to save her. I didn't want to meddle in other people's business. Moreover, the glass man and the others were chasing me, so I broke free from the border collie's grip and planned to run away. But this dog was smarter than I thought. Seeing that I refused to save the girl, it kept following me and barking loudly. If the dog's barking attracted the nearby zombies, it would be even harder for me to get away. Helplessly, I could only beg it to stop barking and promise to save the girl. The girl was forced back to a corner by the group of zombies. There was a lot of blood on her pants. Zombies were sensitive to the smell of blood. Presumably, they were attracted by the smell on her. I used my ability to see from afar to search around and finally found a long bamboo pole. At the same time, I rummaged for a lot of dry clothes and bed sheets. Then, I climbed up the pipeline to the balcony on the 2nd floor above the girl. I threw the clothes and bed sheets onto the grass in front of her. The clothes and bed sheets I took were enough to form a semicircle. Then, I activated my fire ability and set the cloth on fire. A wall of fire quickly formed in front of the girl, separating the group of zombies. Although these flames were not enough to completely repel the group of zombies, they bought me time to rescue the girl. The strong smell of burning cloth diluted the smell of blood, making the group of zombies lose their target for a while. Taking the opportunity, I stretched the bamboo pole towards the girl and told her, "Climb up along this, don't forget to turn invisible, the fire won't last long." The girl looked at me gratefully and then grabbed the bamboo pole and started climbing up. At the same time, her body gradually became transparent, but I could feel her weight getting closer. A few minutes later, with a thud, the girl reappeared in front of me. She gave me a grateful hug and said sincerely, "You saved my life. I don't know how to thank you." Before she could finish speaking, I replied with a solemn expression, "It's time for you to repay me. There are bad people chasing me. Can you make me invisible too? Please hurry up. If it's too late, they will find us." The girl looked a little confused, but under my urging, she fulfilled my request. Just as we successfully turned invisible, the glass man appeared in the fire circle and looked at the balcony with a sinister look. Then, he turned into flying glass shards again and flashed to the balcony. He was only 10 steps away from us. The girl and I held our breath and didn't dare to make any noise. After all, with our abilities, we were no match for him at all. He scanned around several times. Suddenly, his eyes fell in our direction, and he walked closer. We were so nervous that we could hear each other's heartbeats. If he took a few more steps forward, he would definitely find us. Just at this exciting moment, the border collie suddenly ran out and wagged its tail obsequiously at the man. The glass man, who had a cold expression before, suddenly became gentle and kind after seeing the border collie. He immediately squatted down and stroked the border collie's head with a look of infatuation. Then, he looked around a few more times. After confirming that there was no one around, he even kissed the border collie's mouth several times. The girl and I were stunned. Suddenly, the glass man didn't seem so scary anymore. The border collie had him completely under its control and led him downstairs and away. When the glass man gradually disappeared, I finally let out a sigh of relief. But the girl became nervous instead, because she had winked at the border collie on the balcony several times, but the dog clearly saw it and had no intention of coming back at all. Until the man and the dog disappeared from our sight, the girl panicked completely. I realized that something was wrong and was about to run away, but she grabbed the hood of my clothes. "You pay for my dog." The girl sat on the ground and cried bitterly. I tried to comfort her. "Come on, it's so smart. It will definitely come back later, just wait," but she firmly shook her head. "It won't come back. This is the 4th time it has abandoned me this month. I managed to catch it back several times before. It's snobbish and will follow whoever has delicious food. Now that it's with such a powerful person, it definitely won't come back." She cried so sadly, and her voice gradually grew louder. The zombies downstairs became restless again. "You said it's snobbish, presumably, it can't be tamed. Just let it go. Besides, that glass man likes it so much, he will definitely treat it well. Don't worry." I comforted her from another angle, but she still didn't appreciate it. "No way, Lucky is the puppy I raised with great difficulty. Why should I give it away? Let's go, we're going to find it together." I started to argue. "What do you mean by, we? That's your dog. What does it have to do with me? If you want to go, go by yourself. I don't want to go and get myself killed." The girl suddenly came closer and looked me in the eye. She said seriously, "I think the photo of the wanted criminal released by the Dragon Gang looks familiar. Could the person wanted in the group be you? If you don't go, I will locate you in real time and keep following you." I helplessly said, "I give up." "Okay, you're just like your dog." Before setting out to find the dog, the fire downstairs was showing signs of spreading. I used the little Loli's water ability to put out the fire before leaving. Fortunately, Lucky had a locator, which saved me the trouble of using my ability to see from afar. The girl's name was Tiffany, and she was also a resident of Western Bridge community. Her family all turned into zombies after getting caught in the rain, and she was the only one who obtained the ability of invisibility. She had a flowing black long hair and liked to wear a white dress and black jeans. She exuded a unique sense of decadence, and her emotions rarely fluctuated, and with the blessing of the invisibility ability, she was elusive. Walking with her in the dark, I was inexplicably a little scared. I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Under the dark building of the Dragon Gang's headquarters, the security guard in the pavilion was no ordinary person. It was said that he had the ability to teleport and could report to the higher-ups in time after something happened. The security guard was passing the time by watching a horror movie. He was very focused. The female ghost in white in the movie appeared and disappeared in the dark corridor with a green light, looking terrifying. Suddenly, the lights in the security room flickered twice. In fact, Tiffany had turned invisible and turned the lights on and off twice. The security guard felt a chill down his spine and quickly stood up to check the switch. After turning the lights on again, as soon as he sat down, he turned his head and looked at a pale face outside the window. Suddenly, that face disappeared out of thin air and reappeared a few meters away. White clothes, long hair, there were green ghost fires floating around. It was exactly like the female ghost in the horror movie. The security guard was so scared that he started yelling and was about to teleport out to report to the headquarters. Unexpectedly, as soon as he opened the door, he saw Tiffany crawling towards him distortedly and reaching out to grab his right ankle. The security guard let out a howl and fell to the ground with a thud. With the help of the locator, Tiffany and I quickly located Lucky in a room on the 5th floor, just to be cautious. Tiffany still made me invisible and entered the building with her. Fortunately, except for the security guard at the door just now, there were no other security personnel in the building. We successfully reached the 5th floor and entered the room where Lucky was, room 502. To avoid alerting the enemy, we didn't turn on the lights. Lucky was locked in a dog cage and was sleeping. Tiffany called it excitedly and softly, "Lucky, wake up, let's go," as she spoke. She reached out to open the iron dog cage. However, the moment her finger touched the handle, the mechanism connected to the dog cage was triggered, a heavy net fell from the sky and pressed us both under it. At the same time, the lights in the room came on, the white partition that looked like a wall collapsed, and a group of people stood there. Only the bald man in the central position sat on the chair, exuding a powerful aura. The glass man stood beside him and obsequiously handed him a cigarette. There was no need to guess. This person was the legendary overlord of the Dragon Gang, David. When he saw that we were caught, David burst into laughter. He stood up and patted one of his subordinates on the shoulder, praising him. "Frank, you did a great job. Your ability to communicate with animals seems to be of some use, boss. It's all because of your wisdom and might. You thought of interrogating this suspicious dog in advance. I just did a little favor." After saying that, he couldn't help but glance at Lucky. Lucky gave us a guilty look. "Boss, what should we do with these two bad girls?" David turned to the glass man and asked, second in command, "What do you think we should do?" The glass man stared at me with a fierce look and gritted his teeth. "Boss, this woman is very cunning, and she also has the ability to spit fire like the guy with the yellow hair." Frank and the guy with the yellow hair both died at her hands. Killing her directly would be too easy for her. In my opinion, we should throw them all into the fighting arena and make them neither live nor die. What do you think? David nodded in satisfaction. "Okay, do as you say." Tiffany and I were knocked unconscious. When we woke up, we were in the so-called fighting arena. It was called a fighting arena, but in fact, it was just a circular field built with all kinds of messy materials. The walls of the arena were covered with dirty blood, and there were even remnants of white bones. The scene and the smell were both repulsive. However, the group of ability users outside the arena didn't mind at all. The glass man whistled, and the group of people instantly boiled over, as if they were looking forward to the big show that was about to happen. To my surprise, besides the two of us, Bob and Jane were also in the fighting arena. The glass man held up a sign indicating that the four of us would fight against each other. Tiffany's opponent was Jane, and my opponent was Bob. The fights were carried out in batches, and the one who successfully defeated the other would be the winner. The losing side would be thrown into the zombie cage at the back as food. Before it started, I kept warning Tiffany not to show mercy to Jane. After all, Tiffany was an ability user, and she should be more than capable of defeating Jane. At the beginning of the match, Tiffany took the upper hand quickly with her invisibility ability. Jane was furious, but she couldn't even touch a single finger of Tiffany. Instead, she took several punches from Tiffany. Jane, with a bruised face, made up her mind and deliberately revealed a flaw. Then she grabbed a handful of her own nosebleed and smeared it on the ground. She loosened all the surrounding soil, so even if Tiffany was invisible, she could lock onto her position by the footprints. This method worked quickly. Jane excitedly grabbed Tiffany's hair. Tiffany was in pain and couldn't concentrate on using her ability. The two of them fought each other. Jane was bigger and stronger than Tiffany. Without the blessing of her ability, Tiffany was no match for Jane. Jane scratched Tiffany's face with her sharp manicure, leaving several glaring red marks. When I saw that the situation was not good, I quickly reminded Tiffany to concentrate, but Jane held on to her clothes tightly and refused to let go. Tiffany was already out of breath and couldn't break free. I found a small stone on the ground, burned it with fire, and quietly kicked it to Jane's feet. Then I gave Tiffany a look. Tiffany immediately understood and pretended to step back. Jane fell for it and stepped forward to grab her. She happened to step on the hot stone. The sole of Jane's slipper was very thin, and it was quickly burned through by the stone. The stone burned Jane's soul, forcing her to let go of Tiffany. Tiffany seized the opportunity and immediately turned invisible. She quickly subdued Jane, who was lying on the ground and screaming in pain. After the first round of the match, the arena was filled with enthusiastic cheers. Two ability users entered the arena and dragged Jane away, sending her into the zombie cage behind the fighting arena. Jane suddenly shook off the hands of the ability users and pounced on Bob, begging him to save her. But Bob was in a difficult situation himself and didn't even look at her. Jane suddenly let out a howl, grabbed Bob's neck, and pushed him to the ground, but she was no match for Bob. Instead, she was pinned down by Bob, and both of her arms were disabled. After clearing the arena, it was my turn to fight against Bob. Bob had no idea that I had abilities. He thought that his strength was far superior to mine, so he treated me with contempt at first. To fuel his arrogance and make him relax his vigilance, I deliberately let him have the upper hand. He punched me in the stomach, forcing me to vomit a mouthful of blood and collapse to the ground. Bob approached triumphantly and was about to give me the final fatal blow. Little did he know that I, who was pretending to be unconscious on the ground, was accumulating the abilities of water and fire. I counted Bob's footsteps and secretly calculated the most favorable moment to fight back. 1 step, 2 steps, until he was close enough for me to kill him with one blow, when the unique body odor of Bob entered my nose. I realized that the opportunity had come. The wind of Bob's raised fist echoed in my ears. I suddenly turned around and struck with both hands, still looking. It's like slaughtering a pig. Bob looked at me in confusion and didn't understand the meaning of my words. The next second, the fire pillar and a thick water column intersected and merged into boiling water that was over 100 degrees, without reservation. It poured all over Bob from head to toe. A large cloud of warm white steam rose in the fighting arena, mixed with Bob's body odor. Bob in the center of the steam was rolling on the ground, and he let out a painful scream. The whole arena was shocked by this cruel scene and fell silent. It was only after a few seconds that thunderous applause rang out, and it wasn't over yet. I took out the fruit knife I carried with me and quenched the blade with fire until it turned red. Then I walked towards Bob and stabbed him in the heart. "This knife is for you stealing my food and making me hungry." The moment the knife touched the pork, Bob's body, a hissing sound like a rag touching a boiling pot came to my ears. After pulling out the knife, it cooled down, and the sharp blade was covered with blood. Bob was on his last breath, and his half-open eyes were filled with fear and pleading. I wiped the knife clean on the ground with the soil, quenched it red with fire again, and stabbed it into Bob's eyes. "This knife is for you taking over my place and making me homeless." The water vapor in Bob's eyes evaporated instantly, and his eyes shrank rapidly, looking like a dried rotten orange. Bob completely lost his breath, but I still wasn't satisfied. "This knife is the retribution for you strangling me. This knife is for you framing me everywhere and making me enemies. This knife is what Jane deserves. She has done so many bad things and doesn't deserve to be my sister." I stabbed Bob dozens of times without getting tired, until the flesh all over his body was cooked by the blade, and he completely became a dead pig. The group of people outside the arena witnessed all this. Their reactions were quite interesting. From the initial cheering and screaming, the noise gradually decreased, and finally, they completely shut up. I swept my eyes around the arena and could even see a hint of fear in their eyes when they looked at me. Only David remained calm. He even quickly broke the strange atmosphere with his actual actions. He casually pointed at me and Tiffany. "You two have one last match. The one who survives can leave." Tiffany didn't look right. When I got close to her, she took a few steps back, as if she was afraid of me. I never intended to hurt Tiffany, but she obviously thought otherwise. Her figure gradually became transparent until she completely disappeared, just as I was thinking about how to deal with the situation. Tiffany's voice suddenly rang in my ears. "While they are relaxed, we should break through and escape." I nodded imperceptibly, but said something against my will. "You ungrateful bad woman, I will definitely kill you." As I spoke, 2 huge fireballs and water balls were gathering above my palm. I used the old method I used to deal with Bob and pretended to attack Tiffany. "I can see you. Take this ball." In fact, I threw the boiling water ball with the great strength I just obtained towards the glass man and David in the audience. The boiling water ball flew towards the audience. Countless small water masses split in all directions, catching them off guard. I took advantage of the chaos and dragged Tiffany towards the exit. At this time, the zombie cage behind the fighting arena suddenly became restless, and countless zombies rushed out like a flood. I threw Tiffany onto the audience stand outside the fence with great force. Just as I was about to climb up, a hand suddenly grabbed my leg and pulled me down hard. I turned around and saw that it was the persistent glass man. He looked extremely in a difficult position. His face was severely burned and was redder than a drunk monkey's, but I couldn't help but laugh. With the blessing of my great strength ability, I kicked him lightly, and he flew several meters away. My strength exceeded his understanding. He looked at me with disbelief in his eyes. I don't know if it was out of anger or jealousy, but he gritted his teeth with hatred for me and focused all his attention on me. He didn't notice at all that a zombie was approaching him quickly. Just as he was about to turn into glass and chase me, the zombie bit off his ear greedily. He was in so much pain that he couldn't concentrate on using his ability. He quickly disappeared into the zombie horde and was torn apart by countless zombies. I didn't have time to entangle with him. I just grabbed Tiffany's hand and quickly climbed onto the audience stand. The audience stand was in chaos. The zombie horde was attracted by the strong smell of people. They even built a human ladder and climbed out of the fighting arena to chase the defeated ability users. Tiffany activated her invisibility ability again to avoid being discovered by the people of the Dragon Gang as much as possible. We ran all the way, Just as we were about to leave the building, Tiffany suddenly stopped. After all, she couldn't let go of that dog. We had no choice but to turn back to the 5th floor to rescue Lucky, who was still locked up. Unexpectedly, as soon as we opened the door, we ran into David. This David was hiding his true abilities. I still didn't know what his ability was. I clearly saw the huge boiling water ball hitting him. Even the most powerful ability user, if hit by this ball, would have a 99% chance of being scalded to death. Strangely, he not only didn't die, but there was not a single trace of a burn on his skin. I could guess the answer, unless he had an immortal body or a powerful self-healing ability. Later, my attack verified the former. This David couldn't be burned to death by fire, drowned by water, or beaten to death with a fist. Even if he died, he could be resurrected in a few seconds. And there would be no wounds left on his body. It was as if he had never died. With such a terrifying existence, no wonder all his subordinates were willing to work for him. Tiffany and I attacked him together for a long time. As a result, because his health bar was too thick, we finally ran out of energy and were defeated. David punched me in the nose, then he threw me around like a dead dog. I lay on the ground, on the verge of death, and gradually felt my consciousness fading. Just before he was about to find a weapon to kill me, I barely activated my fire control ability and aimed it at his eyes. The fire burned his eyelashes and retina, forcing him to let me go. Tiffany rescued me and took me away quickly while invisible. We ran all the way to the gate of the Dragon Gang's headquarters, only to find that there were a lot of zombies outside. At the same time, that David was chasing us closely and was determined to kill us. The zombie horde in front of us was climbing over the iron fence and approaching us quickly. At the same time, David chased up with a machete. Whether we fell into the hands of the zombies or David, we were sure to die. When we were in a hurry, the dog next to us didn't forget to cause trouble. It barked at a zombie in a security uniform, as if afraid that the zombie wouldn't notice us. I suddenly realized that this zombie looked familiar. It seemed to be the one that Tiffany had knocked unconscious when we first came in. If I remembered correctly, this guy seemed to have the ability to teleport. I looked at Lucky, but it turned its head and snorted, looking very arrogant. It seemed to have known my ability and even suspected that I was stupid. However, this person had already become a zombie. Could I obtain his ability by killing him? Anyway, I had to try my best. My strength recovered a little, and I successfully knocked the zombie down and sent it away with a punch. At the same time, David chased up with the remaining subordinates. He looked at the horde of zombies outside and showed a proud expression. It seemed that he was sure that we had no way out and that this was the best time to settle the score with us. With a single command, several subordinates behind him rushed towards me. I quickly ran to the iron fence and used all my strength to break the middle railing. The zombie horde was like a flock of sheep finding the entrance to the pen and poured in one by one. Tiffany picked up Lucky, grabbed my hand, and made us invisible. At the same time, I activated my teleportation ability and quickly took everyone to a safe place outside the headquarters. Before leaving, I didn't forget to throw a fireball at a zombie. The ability users were too busy dealing with the zombies and could only struggle to deal with them. There were continuous sounds of fighting and screams from the headquarters, and the fire soared into the sky. In the end, the fire engulfed everyone and the zombies, and the magnificent headquarters building collapsed. I don't know if David is dead, but he definitely can't find us. Tiffany and I found a SUV, filled it with enough gasoline and supplies, and prepared to start a spur-of-the-moment doomsday journey. Lucky has been extremely afraid of strangers since that incident and has become very clingy. I imagine it must have suffered a lot after being kidnapped. Tiffany no longer has to worry about being abandoned by it. Oh, by the way, although setting fire is a bad behavior, that fire helped me obtain a lot of superpowers. I accidentally activated more than a dozen kinds of superpowers by myself, including some that I really like, such as the ability to fly and the ability to create paper figures. Tiffany was extremely envious and said, "Since I can't have other superpowers, I will hold on to your coattails tightly. We are best friends, so you won't abandon me, right?" Now it's my turn to envy her for having such a powerful friend like me. That's all the story. What do you think of this story? Share with me in the comments section. What would you do if you were in this situation? Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.